In the muddy heart of Makoko, Lagos, where the lagoon stinks of fish and diesel and the wooden houses lean like tired old men, Adana knelt in the rain, her knees sinking into the black slime that passed for a road. The prison guard's boot pressed against her chest, slow and deliberate, forcing the breath out of her in a hiss. Cold water streamed down her face, mixing with the tears she refused to let fall. "Thief!" the warden spat, grinding the heel a little deeper. "You think say because you fine, you fit steal government cloth?" Adana's fingers clawed weakly at the boot. She was 19, small-boned, with an afro that had once been neat but was now plastered to her skull like wet wool. Her blue prison dress, 2 sizes too big when they gave it to her at Kirikiri, now clung to her body like a second, torn and filthy. A single metal thimble, the only thing she had managed to hide when they dragged her out of the female ward, lay in the mud beside her, glinting like a useless coin. 2 other guards stood behind, arms folded, watching the free show. People passing on the raised wooden walkways slowed down, some shaking their heads, some recording with phones. Nobody intervened. In Makoko, you mind the business that pays you. 3 months ago, Adana had been somebody's daughter. Her father, Baba Tund, used to mend fishing nets under the bridge, humming old juju songs while his needle and twine danced in his fingers. Her mother sold akara by the waterside, her laughter louder than the outboard engines. Then the fever came, Lassa, they said later, and in 1 week both of them were gone. The landlord locked their one-room shack and sold everything inside to cover debts. Adana, 17 then, found herself on the street with nothing but the clothes on her back and her father's old sewing box. She learned fast. She could take a torn Ankara wrapper and turn it into a Sunday best that made market women gasp. Word spread. Rich women from Victoria Island started sending drivers to pick that small girl way Sabi so. For a while she ate twice a day and even sent small money to her younger brother in the village. Then Madame Juliana, the big boutique owner in Ikoyi, offered her a proper apprenticeship. "Come, live in my boys' quarters, I go train you well." Adana packed her sewing box and her dreams and followed. 6 months later, Madame Juliana accused her of stealing 3 yards of Swiss voile and a roll of Guinea brocade worth almost 400,000 naira. The police came quickly, too quickly. Adana swore by her dead parents she never touched the cloth. But the cloth was found under her mattress, neatly folded as if waiting for her. The judge, a tired-looking man with gold glasses, gave her 18 months. Deterrent, he called it. Now here she was, 3 months in, kneeling in Makoko mud because they had brought her out for community service, cleaning the canal, when she tried to run. Foolish. Where would she even run to? The warden finally lifted his boot. Adana gasped, sucking in air like a fish thrown back into water. He laughed, a wet ugly sound. "Next time I go march your neck," he promised, using the sole to wipe mud on her cheek. "Stand up, thief. Work still day." She rose slowly, legs shaking. The thimble was still there. She slipped it into her mouth like communion, then palmed it when nobody was looking. Small thing, but it was her father's. The only thing left. As the guards marched the prisoners back toward the boat that would take them to the mainland, Adana's eyes caught something. A black Mercedes G-Wagon, shining like sin, parked where no G-Wagon had any business parking. The back door opened and a man stepped out. Tall, slim, dressed in simple white linen babariga that somehow didn't get touched by the mud. Even from this distance she could see the watch on his wrist catching the weak sun. He was speaking to someone on the phone, frowning, then his eyes swept the scene and landed on her. Their gazes locked. Adana looked away first. Rich men don't save girls like her. They only collect them, use them, and throw them back into the lagoon when they are done. But the man kept watching. And something in the way he watched, not with pity, not with lust, but with something sharp and recognizing, made Adana's heart beat harder than the warden's boot ever could. She didn't know it yet, but that was the day her story truly began. The boat ride back to Kirikiri was quiet except for the slap of water against the hull and the low curses of the other prisoners. Adana sat at the back, wrists raw from the cuffs they had snapped on again after her failed escape. The thimble was hidden inside her cheek now, pressing against her gum like a secret tooth. She stared at the black water sliding past and tried not to think about the man in the G-Wagon. By the time they reached the prison gate, night had swallowed Lagos whole. Floodlights turned the yard the color of old teeth. The women were marched to the female wing, shoes squelching. Mama Bomboy, the cell leader who had one eye and the strength of two men, slapped Adana across the head as soon as the gate clanged shut. "You one kill yourself," she hissed. "Run where? You think say Bush Day this water." Adana said nothing. She was too tired to explain that running had not been about reaching anywhere, it had been about refusing to stay. Sleep did not come easy. The cell stank of sweat and bleach. Someone was crying in the corner. Around 2 a.m., a warder banged on the gate. "Adana Chukwuma. Oya, come out." Heads turned. Night calls were never good. Either you were going to the punishment cell or you were going home in a body bag. Adana stood slowly, heart kicking against her ribs. They walked her through corridors that smelled of damp cement and fear. Instead of turning left toward the dark hole they called Black Maria, the warder pushed her right, toward the visitor's room. The light there was too bright. She blinked like an owl. And there he was. The man from Makoko sat on the other side of the scratched table, still wearing white, as if the Lagos night had not dared to touch him. Up close he was younger than she thought. Maybe 29, 30. Skin the color of fresh palm oil, neat beard, eyes that looked like they had seen too many things too early. A single gold signet ring on his little finger. No lawyer beside him, no entourage. Just him and a slim leather folder. The warder locked the door and stood outside. The man spoke first, voice low, Igbo laced with the kind of accent that comes from growing up between London and Abuja. "My name is Chike Obioha. You are Adana, daughter of Tund the net mender from Aguta, yes." Adana's mouth went dry. "How you take know my father?" "I knew him," he said simply. "He repaired my father's fishing canoe every December when we came home for Christmas. He never overcharged, even when my father tried to dash him extra money for palm wine. He told my father, 'Small Pekin day house, I no want teach him bad thing.' I was 12. I never forgot." Adana stared. Memories rushed in, her father coming home smelling of lagoon and twine, pressing crisp 50 naira notes into her small palms. "For your biscuit," he would say. Chike opened the folder. Inside was a single photograph, Adana at 15, standing proudly beside a mannequin wearing a blue ghillie and wrapper she had sewn for Mom Ngozi's daughter's wedding. Her smile in the picture was wide and unafraid. "I saw you today in Makoko," he said. "I saw the way you looked at that thimble like it was your whole life. Then I saw this picture on Instagram 2 hours ago." The caption said, "Remember this small girl way so better than machine? Them done jail mo." He pushed the phone toward her. The post already had 87,000 likes. People were cursing Madame Juliana in the comments. Someone had dug up the CCTV footage showing Madame Juliana herself planting the cloth under the mattress. Adana's throat tightened. "I am not here to play savior," Chike said quietly. "But I hate injustice the way some people hate rats. I have spoken to the comptroller. Tomorrow morning they will review your case again. The CCTV is clear. You will walk out by afternoon." Adana found her voice. "And the price?" Chike smiled for the first time. It changed his whole face. "There is no price tonight. Tomorrow, if you agree, I want to offer you a job. Not charity. Real work. I have a fashion house in London and a new atelier I am opening in Lagos. I need someone who can sew like her ancestors are guiding the needle. Someone who will not steal my cloth," he added gently, "because she will own half the cloth." Adana looked at him for a long time. Then she took the thimble from her mouth, placed it on the table between them like a wager. "If I walk out tomorrow," she said, "I go sew for you. But I get my own label inside your label. Ada Nwa Tund. My father's name must stay there." Chike's eyes shone with something that looked dangerously like respect. "Deal," he said. He stood, knocked once on the door. As the warder opened it, he paused. "Adana." "Yes." "Tomorrow, wear something dry." Then he was gone, white linen disappearing down the corridor like a ghost that had decided, for once, to do something useful with its haunting. Adana picked up the thimble, closed her fist around it, and for the first time in 3 months, she smiled in the dark. The morning they opened the gate at Kirikiri, Adana walked out carrying nothing but the same muddy prison dress and the thimble in her fist. No black polythene bag, No property. Just her name cleared and the sun hitting her face for the first time in 94 days without bars in front of it. Chike waited outside in a plain Toyota Corolla. No G-Wagon today. He said rich men who want to stay rich sometimes drive quiet cars. He opened the front door himself. Welcome to the rest of your life, Ada Nwa Tund. She climbed in, rolled the window down, and let the hot Lagos air slap her awake. They did not speak until they reached Ikoyi. He took her to a penthouse flat on Borderland Road, 12-foot windows, polished concrete floors, air so cold it hurt her teeth. In the center of the living room stood one sewing machine. A silver Juki, brand new, still wearing its plastic. Beside it, a stack of fabric higher than her waist. Dutch wax, osso oak, hand-woven aquite, mudcloth from Mali, Kent samples from Ghana. Colors shouting at one another like market women. I bought everything I could carry from Balagan and ABA, Chike said. The rest you will choose yourself. But first, he opened a wardrobe. Inside hung 6 complete outfits, all sewn in her size. Simple, beautiful things, a lilac linen booba and wrapper, a mustard shift dress with tiny mirrors stitched along the hem, a man-style senator suit in deep forest green. I had 3 tailors working from your old pictures, he said, almost shy. I hope the fit is close. Adana touched the linen. Her fingers remembered the feel of cloth the way a tongue remembers sweet. She started crying without noise. The tears just came, hot and fast. Chike did not hug her. He understood some crying is private. Bathroom is that way. When you finish, come and destroy everything on that table. Make it ugly, make it beautiful, make it yours. No deadline. No client. Just so until your soul stops shaking. She bathed for almost 1 hour, scrubbing prison off her skin until it was raw. When she came out wearing the lilac booba, her hair wrapped in a white towel, Chike was gone. A note on the Juki read, "Gone to ABA for 3 days. Keys on the hook. Fridge is full. Wi-Fi password is Thimble 1996. Don't open the door for anybody you don't trust. I trust you." 3 days alone with fabric and silence. On the first night she did not touch the machine. She sat on the floor and cried again, this time loud, ugly, until her throat bled. On the second day she cut nothing but paper patterns, tearing them up as fast as she made them. On the third morning she woke up at 4 a.m., the hour her father used to pray, and started sewing. She did not stop for 14 hours. When Chike returned, the living room looked like a storm had passed through it. Bolts of cloth lay wounded on the floor. Pins glittered like dangerous stars. And in the center, on the dress form, stood a single piece. A man's shirt made from 6 different Ankara prints, pieced together like a mad quilt, yet somehow perfectly balanced. The collar was crisp, the cuffs sharp enough to cut. On the back, embroidered in tiny red thread, was one word, Ozoemena. Chike stared for a long time. "This one," he said finally, voice rough, "is not for sale. This one is for my father. He will wear it to the next Ofala and cry in front of the whole kingdom." Adana's eyes were swollen from no sleep, but they shone. "That shirt is my prison uniform," she said. "Every patch is one bad day inside. I cut it, I pieced it, I owned it. Now it is beautiful. That is the only magic I know." Chike stepped over the chaos and took her hands. "Then teach me that magic. The atelier opens in 6 weeks. The lease is signed on Awolowo Road. Your name goes on the signboard before mine. But first, you will choose every tailor we hire. Only women who have been counted out. Widows, ex-prisoners, single mothers, deaf girls, mad girls, anybody the world dawn call finished. We go finish the finishing." Adana laughed, the sound rusty but real. "You day fear. Fear. 8 a.m., I am shaking. But I have money and a name. You have fire and a story. Together we will burn down every lie they told you about yourself." He reached into his pocket and brought out a small wooden signboard, hand-carved. Ada Nwa Tund Atelier. A subsidiary of Obioha Textiles. She traced the letters with one finger, the thimble still on it like a ring. "Then let the first cut be mine," she said. And she picked up the scissors. 6 months later, Awolowo Road, Ikoyi. The signboard now hung proud above a white two-story building with floor-to-ceiling windows. Ada NWA Tund Atelier. In bold Kelly green letters, the color of new palm leaves. Underneath, smaller. Powered by Obioha Textiles. Inside, 25 women worked like one body with many hands. There was Mama Ibeji, 53, who lost her twin boys to police bullets and now cut fabric with the precision of a surgeon. There was Chioma the Deaf, 17, who could match colors better than any machine. There was even Madame Juliana's former head tailor, Auntie Comfort, who walked in one day, knelt in the middle of the cutting room, and begged Adana to take her. "I sobby wettin' that woman, do you? I no fit sleep again." Adana gave her the smallest salary and the hardest jobs. Forgiveness is not foolishness. The atelier had rules written in marker on a blackboard by the door. Nobody shouts at anybody. If you steal even one reel of thread, you leave the same day. Every woman's past ends at the gate. Here we only talk future. Lunch is jollof and dodo every Friday. Bring your own meat if you get money. Adana ran the place like a mother and a general at the same time. Chaik came only twice a week, mostly to sign checks and carry fabric bolts. He understood the space was hers to command. Then trouble came wearing perfume and Louboutins. Madame Juliana stormed in one Tuesday afternoon with 2 lawyers and 3 bloggers carrying cameras. She wore a turquoise gelly taller than her conscience. "This small girl Dawn used juju take my customers," she announced to the whole workroom. "Everything here na my design. She steal my pattern book the day police carry her." Cameras flashed. The women froze over their machines. Adana stepped forward slowly, holding only a metal measuring tape. The same one her father used to slap her palm when she cut cloth crooked as a child. "Auntie Juliana," she said calmly, "welcome. You want to see the pattern book I stole? Here am." She walked to the wall and pulled down a thick ledger. Flipped it open. Every page was dated, signed by Adana, witnessed by 2 staff. Sketches, swatches, notes, all dated from the weeks after she left prison. Juliana's mouth opened and closed like tilapia on dry land. One of the bloggers, a sharp girl from Pulse, asked, "Madam, is it true you planted that Swiss voile yourself because Adana refused to sleep with your brother?" The lawyers started sweating. Adana raised the measuring tape like a whip, then let it snap against her own palm. The crack made everybody jump. "I no get time for court case," she said. "But I get time for truth." She turned to the room. "Sisters, whoso here, how many of una Dawn ever see me copy anybody design?" 25 voices answered at once. "Never." Then Mama Ibeji stood up, scissors still in hand. "Madam Juliana, if you no comet for here before I count 3, I go use this scissors open your gelly and your mouth together." The bloggers loved it. Phones were recording everything. Juliana saw the tide had turned. She tried one last card. "You think say because you day follow Obioha Pekin you don reach? He go tire of you. All these village champions, na so them day end, back to Makoko, back to mud." Adana smiled. It was not a nice smile. She walked to the front door, held it open. "Madam, the mud you talk about na the same mud that grew the yam way feed your father. I am proud of that mud. But today, I choose marble. You can keep your poison. My customers no want am again." Juliana left with her entourage, gelly shaking like it wanted to fly away from her head. That evening the video went viral. Hashtag 8ANWA Tund trended #1 in Nigeria for 2 days straight. Orders crashed the website. Vogue Africa called. British Vogue called. Even CNN Style wanted an interview. Chaik arrived at closing time with a bottle of palm wine and 2 plastic cups. "You no slap her," he said, pouring. "I am proud. And little disappointed." Adana drank deep. The wine was sharp, sweet, home. "I don't need to slap her. The ancestors already slap her the day they gave me talent and her jealousy." She looked around the workroom. Machines quiet now, moonlight falling through the windows on bolts of cloth waiting for tomorrow. Chaik. "Yes, Ada M. The day you go tire of me, tell me sharp sharp. No long story." He set his cup down, took her face in both hands. "Listen well. The day I tire of you is the day Agita Lake goes dry and ABA Market starts selling snow. Ebe karem no, ebe ani no eno nu. Adana laughed, eyes wet again. Then make we sow the future sharp before these journalists finish us. She kissed him there in the moonlight, measuring tape still dangling from her wrist like a love charm. Outside, Lagos traffic roared past, but inside the atelier glowed soft and steady. 25 women had gone home with full envelopes, and the ancestors smiled behind the sewing machines. The first real collection was only 8 weeks away. 8 weeks to Lagos Fashion Week. The atelier had become a war room. At 2 a.m. the street outside was quiet, but inside Ada NWA Tund Atelier every light burned. The women worked in shifts, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., 6 p.m. to 6 a.m. Nobody complained. They were sewing their own resurrection. Adana had not slept properly in 12 days. Her eyes were red, but her hands were steady. The collection was called Ozoemina, May It Not Happen Again. 30 looks. Every piece told a story of something that had tried to kill one of them and failed. Look 1, a prison blue jumpsuit turned inside out, lined with gold silk, the pockets embroidered with the names of every woman who had ever shared a cell with Adana. Look 15, Mama Ibeji's twin sons immortalized in Kent strips woven into a man's agbada that could make a grown chief cry. Look 30, a wedding gown for the girl who will never again be called orphan. Chike moved money like water. New industrial machines from Japan, handlooms flown in from Akwit, 2 days before the weavers threatened strike, a French photographer who charged the price of a duplex but agreed to shoot for half because this story is bigger than euros. Then the ancestors tested them. 3 weeks to show day, Nipa took light for 4 straight days. Generator packed up. Fuel finished in Lagos, Q from Ojota to Maryland. The Japanese machines, delicate as virgins, refused to run on anyhow generator. Deadlines bled. The women sat in the dark cutting room and looked at Adana. She stood up, took the lantern, and said only one sentence. Make we go back to the old way. That night they carried every bolt of cloth down to the backyard. Mama Ibeji brought her father's old treadle singer from 1968. Chioma the deaf dragged out the hand crank machine she used before electricity reached her village. Someone produced a hurricane lantern. Another brought candles. They laid ankara and oak on the concrete like mats. And they sewed by firelight. No electricity, no noise, only the rhythm of feet on treadle, the soft clack-clack of hand machines, and women singing in Igbo, Yoruba, Hausa, Efik, whatever tongue their mothers gave them. The songs were old, older than colonial borders, songs for birth, for burial, for war, for love. The machines answered in the same languages. Adana moved between them, thimble flashing, basting pieces together with long stitches that would be removed at dawn. Her voice rose above the rest. If our mothers fit born us for village without light, we fit born this collection the same way. At 5:17 a.m. the sky turned indigo. The final hem was turned. 30 looks hung on the rack like soldiers waiting for inspection. Every stitch was perfect. They did not cheer. They simply held hands in a circle, heads bowed, and prayed in the language of women who have carried too much and are still standing. Light came back 2 days later. Too late to matter. The night before the show, Chike found Adana asleep on the cutting table, cheek against a piece of midnight blue oak, scissors still in her hand. He carried her to the small room upstairs, laid her on the mattress, covered her with the wedding gown muslin. He sat on the floor beside her and spoke into the dark. 8 a.m. Tomorrow the whole world go see wet newborn with pain and lantern. But I want you to know something now, before cameras, before applause. I love you past fabric, past money, past even my own name. If tomorrow the runway catch fire and everything burn, I go still love you the same. You hear me? Adana opened one eye. You day wake person to confess love? Not crime. He laughed, the sound shaky with exhaustion and something deeper. Sleep, stubborn woman. Tomorrow you go conquer Lagos. She reached out, caught his shirt, pulled him down beside her. Conquer together, she corrected. They slept tangled like thread on a bobbin, breathing the same air thick with the smell of new cloth and old songs. Outside, the city held its breath. Inside, 30 looks waited for morning, stitched with prison tears, widow grief, motherless rage, and the stubborn joy of women who had decided, once and for all, that their stories would end in beauty. Tomorrow the machines would rest. Tomorrow the world would see. 2 years later. Eco-Atlantic, the part of Lagos that feels like tomorrow borrowed money from yesterday. The ballroom of the Meridian Hotel glittered like a shrine brass. Crystal chandeliers dripped light onto tables dressed in snow-white damask. Every important name in African fashion was here, from Cape Town to Casablanca, from Paris to New York. Cameras flashed like harmattan lightning. Outside, the Atlantic Ocean kept its ancient rhythm, reminding everybody that no matter how high the towers rose, water still ruled the city. On the runway, the final model stepped out. She wore a midnight blue osso-oak gown woven with real gold thread that caught every light and threw it back like stars. The skirt fell in sculpted pleats that looked stiff until she moved, then it flowed like river water. The neckline was high and modest. Ibo Izago is the style Adana had named it, but the back plunged daringly, held together by one thin cord of coral beads. On her head sat a crown gelly that rose almost 2 feet, stiff and regal, the exact blue of Agita Lake at dusk. The crowd rose as one. Then the model turned, and the back of the gown revealed the signature, 2 names embroidered in gold script across the train. Ada Nwa Tund. Chike Obioha. Obioha and Ada. Lagos/London 2027. The applause thundered. Backstage, Adana stood with her palms pressed together, trying to breathe. She wore a simple white lace blouse and wrapper, the kind of outfit her mother would have sold Accra in, but the lace was hand-woven in Okene and had cost more than most people's yearly rent. Her afro was picked out full and proud, threaded with tiny cowries that chimed when she moved. Chike appeared at her elbow, handsome in black velvet agbada, the same gold embroidery running through his sleeves. "You ready?" he asked in Igbo. She answered in English, the way they did when cameras were near. "I was born ready. My father taught me that the day I first held a needle." They walked out together. The MC, a famous Nollywood actress, could barely speak over the noise. "Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time anywhere in the world, the Prince of ABA Fabric and the Princess of Agita Needle. Chief Chike Obioha and Chief Adana Chukwuma Obioha." Another roar. Adana lifted the microphone. Her voice, once small and shaking in a Kirikiri visiting room, now filled the hall clear and strong. "This collection is called Ozo Emina. May it not happen again. Every piece you saw tonight was sewn by women who were once in prison, or on the street, or told they would never amount to anything. The gold thread running through every design is from the same loom my father-in-law started in ABA in 1974. The blue dye is from my mother's village. Nothing here is imported. Everything here is us. Everything here is possible." She paused, looked at Chike, then back at the crowd. "And for those who still doubt, the orphan girl you saw kneeling in Makoko mud 2 years ago is standing here tonight because one man refused to drive past pain. But I am also standing here because I refuse to stay down. Never forget that part." Silence. Then the clapping started again, louder, longer. Later, when the lights dimmed and the guests moved to the garden for champagne and suya, Chike pulled her aside under a palm tree strung with fairy lights. He went down on one knee, right there on the marble, not caring who was watching. "Adana, Nwa Tund, NWAM, I have asked you in London, in Agita, in a canoe in the middle of the lake, and you keep saying, wait until the collection is finished. The collection is finished. Marry me properly. Let me carry your father's name the way you have carried mine." Adana laughed through sudden tears. "I have been your wife in every way that matters since the night you brought me dry clothes in Kirikiri. But yes, Chike. Yes. In front of God and our people. Let them call me orphan again, make I hear." He slipped the ring on, a single Agita sapphire surrounded by tiny diamonds shaped like sewing needles. Behind them, Mama Bomboy, now head of quality control at the atelier and wearing ankara like a queen, let out a whoop that scattered the egrets from the trees. Phones came out. The video would break the African internet by morning. Much later, when the party finally quieted and the moon hung low over the Atlantic, Chike and Adana stood on the balcony. She rested her head on his shoulder. "You kept your promise," she said softly. "Which one?" "You told me the night we met that there was no price. You lied small." He laughed quietly. "How?" You paid with your whole heart. That one cost pass money. He kissed her forehead. And you, Ada M., paid with yours. Now the bill is settled. From tonight, everything we sow together. Below them, Lagos kept breathing. Generator noise, distant juju music, the eternal argument of the sea against the land. But up here, wrapped in gold-threaded osso oak and new promises, the color of Agueda Lake, the forsaken orphan and the billionaire prince held each other like two halves of the same thimble. And the cloth that carried both their names finally, truly, became one.